And welcome, Hoosier fans, to our 11th episode of a new show called The Hoosier Sound. I'm your host, Noah Freeman, and I am delighted to present you with this new podcast. We are an IU-centered podcast that focuses on IU sports such as basketball, football, and more from the point of view as a student or a young adult. To end each show, we will also give our view on hot takes from around the world of sports. We will be going live every Tuesday evening at 7:30 p.m., but if you miss us live, you can subscribe to our various networks so you can listen on your own time. We are now on iTunes or Apple Podcast, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and our live stream will be posted on our YouTube page after each recording. All you got to do is search for The Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts, then just hit subscribe. The videos will then pop up for you when they are published. It's really simple, really easy, and it would mean a lot to us if you guys just hit that subscribe button. Social media is also big for us, and we post updates for you guys on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you guys give us a like and a follow, as well as subscribe in our YouTube account. All of the information is in the description below. You can check out our website, thehoosiersound.wordpress.com, to find out all of our information in one place. All right, Hoosier fans, it's time for some sports talk. This past weekend, the Hoosiers finally had the game we were all waiting for. The offense clicked, the defense clicked, special teams clicked, everyone clicked, and the Hoosiers won in a lightning-delayed game, 41-0. Per the request of Matt to not go first, I'm going to start out by giving us our thoughts on the Rutgers game. Basically, it's about time, Hoosier football. They finally had a full game of football, and they played that full game well.
Yeah.
Yes, it was to Rutgers again, but I don't care. I don't care how bad any Big Ten team is. It's hard to shut out a Big Ten opponent anywhere and still win by that kind of margin, regardless of how good the one team is and how bad the other is. So I'm going to start with the offense. Guys, the offense finally came. Sure, IU was able to – huh?
Yeah, they definitely showed up this time.
Oh, yeah. Sure, they put up some numbers in like those scoring numbers in games like Maryland and Georgia Southern, but it really wasn't anything like how dominant they were this time. They had 503 total yards, which is, I'm pretty sure that's the first time this season the Hoosiers so far have gone over 500 total yards. That does include Georgia Southern and Charleston Southern, guys. That's positive news there. Rutgers is, yes, better than Georgia Southern and Charleston Southern. It was also the first time we truly had a balanced running versus passing game. We ran for 567 yards and passed for 236. Did I just say 567?
Yes.
I meant ran for 267. Ran 267, passed 236. But guys, we had a running game. We actually had a running game for the very first time. Nelson and Guest both put up numbers over 100 yards. I don't remember the last time we had two running backs.
I got a question. Where was Guest at the start of the season? Like, why did he all of a sudden show up now? Where was he the first 3 games?
And he had some of those breakout runs, which IU really likes those breakout runs, because Tevin Coleman, Jordan Howard had those breakout runs, and that's how a run game would always do well, and that's what Guest did.
Yep.
But offensive side, this is kind of special teams, but it's under the offensive, and we only punted 4 times, which means we kept moving the ball down the field, and we didn't need to punt the ball that much. That's awesome when we don't have to punt the ball. And we also won the possession battle. There's only been literally a couple games where we've had the ball more than the opponents, and for the first time in a long time, we actually won the possession battle. Only Maryland and Illinois, we actually had more possession time. Defense, though, man, senior night, those on the defensive end, they really had an incredible defensive performance. We had 8 senior starters that Tom Allen decided to start for the senior night and everything, and they held Rutgers. They did really well. They held Rutgers to 190 total yards, 103 passing, and 87 rushing. That's awesome. We actually held Rutgers to the lowest total yards out of anyone we have played this season. That includes that they have played this season. Sorry. So Rutgers has still had more total yards against Washington, Ohio State,
Mhm.
Penn State, Michigan, Purdue, and Maryland, they had more yards
Well,
against
they beat
those
Purdue.
powerhouse teams. Yeah, and they beat Purdue at like Maryland, not as much power, but they had more total yards against Washington, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. That's awesome. Even the backups, they were able to maintain that shutout at the end of the game when a lot of those starter seniors were pulled. So some of those, obviously, some of those back seniors could actually get some playing time on such a special day. We know what the defense is capable of, and this game should basically be the norm for them.
Well,
yeah, in the last couple games. But special teams, I'm going to go down the full list because Hoosiers, the all sides of the ball play. It was awesome awareness for that fumble recovery with Rutgers at the very, very beginning of the game. Usually you see a fair catch. Obviously, you want to kind of get in their face, but usually they don't drop a ball like that. But
and then we came out next play and
we were aware.
put it in. That was like the dagger.
Exactly.
Right there. We put a dagger in them in the first 10 seconds of the game.
Couple minutes, I think he said he glitched out right there. But that's great awareness for just being there and then ready to pop on the ball, especially when a ball can jump around pretty quickly. And again, special teams kind of thing, only punted 4 times. Amazing. Also, this is one of the stats that honestly, out of all of those stats, I found incredible. We only had for 15 yards the entire game. The discipline has gotten so much better from this team, and it doesn't matter who it is. Penalties, doesn't matter who you're playing, that's discipline. You could be playing the worst team and still rack over 100 yards of penalties, and that was awesome. The only other close game that we had close to penalties like that was Penn State, where we committed 2 for 20.
And the one penalty, I might add, was on Tigre. That could have been...
Oh, yeah, that was...
He could have gone without it. Yeah, he could have gone without it.
We won't have to go into that, but I'll take one penalty for 15 yards. That's amazing. But guys, the Hoosiers really are poised to try and make their 3rd straight bowl game appearance since 1968 to 88, which was the only other time that they've made it 3 straight games in a row. I know it's been a frustrating year in a lot of ways because we really should have won a lot more games, actually broken through like this team's motto is, but this is still good for IU football regardless. We still have to see that. This is possibly the second time, only the second time that IU football has made a bowl game 3 times in a row. There's only been one other span in IU football history that the Hoosiers were really going to bowl consecutive years. And as frustrating as some of these games are, this is much better than the normal for Hoosier football.
Well,
it's really something to look up for.
We're not going yet. Hold up. We still got one more game.
Oh, yeah. But this is a lot better. And I'm saying a game like this is just very positive as much as a lot of these frustrating games have been. And even if we don't make a bowl game this year, we were still a bowl. I think our team this year is good enough to compete in a bowl compared to other years. And this is still also Tom Allen's first year. And I think this is a good stretch of IU football that is about to come. And it's better than most of basically Indiana football history.
Yeah.
So let's move on to that last game. The last game of the regular season and potentially the final game of this Hoosier football team. IU and Purdue square off in a winner-take-all game, which is the first time in a long time that this Hoosier IU Purdue game has really mattered. Where basically the winner gets the Oaken Bucket and a trip to a bowl game. I will say actually does win, there is a good chance that they will actually still possibly get in for their AP ranking and all that stuff in their voting. So it's not completely out yet if we do end up losing, but it's basically a winner-take-all game with this Oaken Bucket and bowl game. Matt, give us a preview.
If you want to know like in depth about what situations have to happen in order for us, if worst case scenario we lose to Purdue, go to crimsoncorey.com. They have a whole list of everything that would need to happen. It's really in-depth, great article. I would go check it out if you want to learn more. But
and also next week, if we do lose, we can get into that more basically if we're going to get it or not. But let's hope that we're going to win and we don't even need to have that discussion because we're going to get in it anyway.
I don't have the mindset that we're going to lose to Purdue. So
me too.
So when we're looking at our opponent, a gracious opponent on the other side. So first off, Purdue's going to give us everything they got. Obviously, it's a rivalry game, and the stakes are just as high for them. They just knocked off Iowa
Away.
in Iowa, in Kinnick. That doesn't happen, right? So this is a team that's coming in on a high. We're coming in on a high. So this is going to be even. I think this game's going to be real close. It's a rivalry game. Rivalry games are always close.
Doesn't matter what the records are.
Right. Look at Florida State, right? And that might be the game of the day because both teams are terrible. But they're both, it's a rivalry game, so they're going to give it their all. And the same thing goes for IU and Purdue, Michigan, Ohio State, the rest. But so for Purdue's football team, their whole offense is based on if they can get quick throws, like quick slants and throws, and if they can run the ball. So our corners and safeties are going to have to be real physical. And then Tigre is going to have a great game. And I think a Purdue offense that's a little bit lackluster, I think we can stop. Their QB I'm not really worried about. I don't know if is their starting QB coming back, or are they still in their second string?
I think it's the same guy that was just at Iowa.
Okay.
I think it's probably going to be there.
Yeah, but even at Iowa, they didn't score many points. They're like Rutgers. That they don't score many points, obviously, because they lost to Rutgers, and Rutgers put the most points up on them. But for defensive-wise, they're a physical defense. They're swarming. They're pretty quick. Like, for a Purdue team, Purdue's usually a smash-mouth team, but they're quick. They like to get to the ball, like to swarm the ball. They like to get takeaways, and I think that helps their offense a lot, especially putting their offense in good positions. So Lago's going to need to be pinpoint with the ball. I don't want to see any sloppy throws like he did last game. There's one thing he did last game. He just threw an interception. I'm like, where are you throwing it? Where there's nobody there. There wasn't anybody with. Anyways,
at least it's not as many times. He's cut down significantly.
He's obviously improved, and I'll give him that. He's still sometimes, I swear, don't get me worked up. But defense, if we can establish our run game like we did in Rutgers, obviously you saw what that did for us. I feel like we're going to have a tough time doing it. They're going to be in the trenches. They're going to want to stop it as well. So we're going to need all we got to beat Purdue. But if we're going off the last game, I think we can do it if we pull off the same performance. And I feel like Sammy Cobbs is going to bring his all. I feel like Guest and the rest of the crew are going to bring it all. And I believe that Oaken Bucket's going to be coming back to us. So hopefully we won't have to be talking about, well, we're 5-7, and I hope that some teams decline bowl invitations. But we'll see next week.
Oh yeah, Purdue is definitely a much better team than they have in the last year or two, but I don't think that's going to waver our opinion on how we think IU is going to do.
Yes.
This coming Saturday. By the way, it's a noon game.
Yes.
On Saturday at Purdue. Yep. So you can see it. But let's move on to some basketball, women's basketball. They've started their season. They started off strong, 3-1. They lost their first game last night to Chattanooga by 3. So 3-point game, a missed 3-pointer by Tyra could have possibly had them undefeated, but that's okay. They're still 3-1 at the very beginning of the game. So Matt, give us a general overview of how the Lady Hoosiers are doing this season.
Well, first off, 3-1, not a bad record, especially women's basketball. Anybody can beat anybody. Mm-hmm. It's just, if you're hitting your shots, you're hitting your shots. And I feel like yesterday they weren't hitting their shots very well. I think I saw a stat somewhere that we were like 30% from 3 or somewhere in that range. We just weren't hitting our shots. Tyra had a tough night. It's amazing to say that 17 points is a tough night for Tyra, but it's Tyra Bus. If you haven't seen her yet play in Assembly Hall, I highly recommend going out for a game. She is amazing at what she does. She's she's just entertainment at its finest. She plays the game beautifully. So while she's great, I feel like the rest of the team is having a hard time coming together. Every once in a while you see them, make a arid pass here or there, or maybe they don't switch correctly on defense.
Because they got
kind of
8 new
reminds me of
players.
another Hoosier basketball team, but I can't put my finger on who it might be.
Except women's basketball, they've got 8 new people there, so that's at least at the first 4 games, it's at least a little more understandable.
It's understandable, yes. So they're still getting used to each other. In years past, we had some size down low. This year, we're a little small, I think, compared to previous years. So I think we're gonna get bullied on boards and getting down low if they're a bigger team than us. But Amanda Cahill's amazing. She's really good. She should get out and see her as well.
Strong senior class.
Yes, we're obviously gonna make the tournament, I think, and you should definitely come out and see them because this might be the best IU women's basketball team we've had in a while.
Which is also, it's not the norm for IU women's basketball to make the tournament a lot, and they've been making the tournament the past couple of years, which is also a positive thing. We're going to move on to soccer. We're going to put you through the ringer of IU sports because it's just that kind of season. Men's soccer, if you guys haven't followed them at all this year, they've had a great year. They were picked as the number 2 seed in the tournament after they did not advance past Wisconsin in penalties in the Big Ten championship. For soccer, for those of you who don't know, the bracket seeding isn't like basketball where there's 4 number 1 teams, 4 number 2 teams, et cetera, for each ranking. It just goes down the list. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the Hoosiers were picked as the second best team. They won their first match against number 25 ODU, or the Old Dominion Monarchs. They won 3-0 on Sunday. Their next match is this coming Saturday against New Hampshire at 7 p.m. So you can watch IU beat Perdon't and then go watch IU soccer keep doing well. It's a home game for the Hoosiers, though, and they're basically going to stay home since they drew that number 2 seeding. They're going to stay home until the semifinals, unless they get knocked out, where everyone goes to Philadelphia, basically. IU men's soccer is the only undefeated team left in the nation, and they advanced to the round of 16 for the 37th time in school history, the sixth time under head coach Todd Yeagley. So I'm going to basically give us some comments about how they performed in their opening NCAA tourney match against ODU. My first thought, they looked good for most of the game, honestly. It started out pretty slow. It took them about a half hour to really get in their normal groove. But after that, they started to push a little more. They started to get a little more aggressive on the offensive end, and things started to open up a lot more. They started to get a lot more shots. They ended the half 1-0 or 1-0. Basically, after not a bad start, they were just slower than normal. The momentum basically continued into the second half, where they kept pressuring and they were able to score twice at basically the front end of the second half. They were basically at the beginning of the second half, they were pressuring so much that ODU really didn't get the ball for, honestly, the first 10 to 15 minutes. The commentators were even talking about how much possession time IU was getting at the very beginning of the second half. And obviously, if you guys haven't followed men's soccer, the defense is really, really strong this year. Coach Yeagley talked about how you really need a solid defense to make a run in this kind of NCAA tourney in soccer. That coupled with a good offense, the Hoosiers really do have that this year. Indiana had another shutout, their 4th straight this year, where earlier this season the Hoosiers went 9 straight games without giving up a goal. I think they said something like 936 minutes or something like that, if I recall correctly, where they didn't give up a goal, which is the longest in team history and the 4th longest in the NCAA period, which is awesome. Like I said, their next match is against New Hampshire at 7. So basically, just go watch them, guys. It's the end of the year. They only have a couple games. all things are clicking on all cylinders for this team. Everyone should really watch them. They really do have high expectations for the overall outcome of the NCAA tournament. And usually the games are on a Big Ten network, so you can usually watch that, or at least BTN to go. So you can still watch a lot of those games. Next
We're a
up,
soccer school.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and they've got a good chance to put up another star on that jersey.
We all hope so.
I know. We'll be there soon. Next up, the Hoosiers, Hoosier basketball, IU basketball, men's basketball this time. They split again their last two games of this week. They first lost to Seton Hall 84-68, and then they beat University of South Florida 70-53. So Matt, start us out with Seton Hall, and then I'll follow up with some comments about USF.
So Seton Hall, where to start with this game? Well, first off, let's start off with the start. We started slow again, which I was slightly scared about because we were away at Seton Hall, and we picked it up about a third the way through the first half. We went on a run, and we were winning at halftime. No, we were losing at halftime.
By like one, right? Something like that.
Yeah, we're losing by one.
By the way, I think it was like a 1 point game. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a 1 point game at halftime. I don't know why I said we were winning. We were losing by one at halftime in Seton Hall, and I went, huh. You know, Duron Davis is out there for more than 2 minutes and not picking up 4 fouls in the first half. We might be winning this game. That
Did
didn't
he play for
register
about
in
10 minutes that game?
Yeah. It didn't register in my mind until we got in the second half. Like, why isn't Duron playing? I'm like, oh, because he's got I think he had 3 fouls or 2 fouls in the first half, and he picked up a third and a fourth one real fast in the second half. And it all went downhill from there. And I think the whole game was summed up in one play. Defensive end, we made them take a tough shot, get the rebound, pass it out. Rob Johnson is running up the court. He's looking up the court, dribbling the ball, and then all of a sudden the ball is no longer in his hands and it's bouncing towards the defender because he forgot to dribble the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes our senior guards look like freshmen, and it has to be mental because I know Robert Johnson knows how to dribble the ball up the court. And I was freaking out about this until the USF game, but Noah will talk about that in a minute. But overall, first half got an A- performance. Because I didn't think we were going to go in there and beat Seton Hall anyways, because if you watched our podcast, a special segment, I said that we were going to lose that game. So I was already expecting us to lose.
Both of us had an 0-1, yeah.
That was before we had the Indiana State game. So I already had that down. So I was like, I'm expecting to lose here. But after the first half, my optimistic self went, wow, we could actually do this.
Maybe get a run going, blow out opponents till Duke, and then we'll be able to beat the #1 team in the nation. We'll be ranked. And
yes, that was me exactly. I'm sitting there eating Aver's pizza. Like, this is going to happen. We're going to do this.
We're going to beat Duke. We're going to beat
And then all of a sudden, the
Louisville.
Aver's pizza didn't feel so good in my stomach after the game. And I was like, this is great. No, but if there's some bright spots we can take from the Seton Hall game, Justin Smith had a good outing.
He's looking like a good player already as a freshman. It's awesome.
Yes. And he did some freshman things, and he still was fine. Like, he gets up in post position, catches a rebound, and then when he should have immediately put it back up again, he fakes, and then fakes, and then fakes, and the guy's like, all right, now you got to jump on the fourth one. He finally puts it up and gets it blocked. Like, with time, he's going to learn to fake it once and put it up, or fake it twice and then put it up, or just put it up immediately when to do or when to not to do. That's just going to come with game experience, especially at Division I level. And he actually took a three, which I was like, thank you, because I know you can shoot those. I've seen your mixtape. I know you can do it.
He's got a pretty shot too.
He has a very pretty shot. So I feel like it's just with more confidence, he'll be shooting it a bunch more, and he will become a valuable weapon. So he was a bright spot. Al Durham was a bright spot again. I feel like he had certain spots in the games where he again made freshman mistakes, like sticking out his leg and picking up a foul that he shouldn't have picked up, or taking a shot too early in the shot clock. But those were just minuscule things. He did some amazing layups with his left hand and his right hand. Can we talk about how he's right-handed and he looks like he's better with his left hand at making layups? Can we just talk about that for a second? Because that's amazing to me. I don't understand. I have one hand. I can't fathom being able to use both. But yeah. And I think he made a three. I'm pretty sure he did. He was taking shots, and you could tell that he wasn't hesitating on the shots he made. For the most part, our older guys, I think it's just part of learning the system, don't know which shot to take. So they get the ball, they kind of stare at the rim, they go, should I shoot this? And they go, no, I'm going to dribble it. And then I'm going to pick up my dribble, and now where do I pass it? It's kind of like they're overthinking things. If you get an open shot off of a set play, please shoot it.
They're getting there. Archie at least has even addressed that in media conferences.
Yes, and if we talk about the USF game, Noah will explain on how that ended up working out. So
yeah, basically getting a simple play. I'll go into that then. Nice segue. Sure, it wasn't, if you guys ended up watching the game, it wasn't the best game in IU Indiana basketball history, basically. Let's put it like that. But they did have a really, really promising last 10 minutes of that game. So a couple takeaways from that game. What we've been harping on the whole season so far, all of us have been harping on, basically leadership from Rob and Juwan is finally here. Well, at least it wasn't in one game. And look what happened basically when they were able to take over. Basically, turnovers were really key. They had, when you look in the first half, they had 9 turnovers, and they lost the half 34-33. Then you go to the second half, and they only had 3 turnovers the entire half. They won that half 37-19. That's a humongous difference. Obviously, you can see the correlation between a lot of turnovers versus a little bit of turnovers, and why Archie is harping on that so much. I think in his post-game press conference for about 2 of his 10 minutes, he talked about turnovers and how obviously you get more shots because 9 turnovers in the first half, that's 9 shots you just don't get and everything, and versus the second half. And then you also give the opposing team 9 extra shots that you wouldn't have gotten. So basically that's awesome because you can see how the point differential between USF is really significant when those turnovers really played a difference. And it also helps the defense when obviously they're not on 9 extra possessions, basically. Another part that I really thought was, it's not key, but I thought it really helps with this team, the 3-point shots. When IU made basically 3 shots in a row, 2 by Rob and 1 by, I think it was Devontae or someone like that.
I would assume it's Devontae.
Something. I don't remember who that third one was by, but it was someone else, and it really basically kick-started the team. It kick-started the crowd, and obviously USF was still scoring off of those drives basically in between, but it still really kick-started the morale. We're not a team that's going to need to score 15 threes in a game to win anymore. That's Tom Crean's system, and you can you can say it worked or it didn't work, but it basically really just helps with the psyche and the morale of the players and the fans. You just score a couple of threes, it gets momentum into you as a player, so your shot feels a little better, and then the fans also get pumped into it, and it just really helps with it. So it, like we've seen over the past 4 games, most of the 4 games we have not shot the ball from 3 well at all, and you could just tell it's just kind of like a sluggish game whenever we're not making any 3-point shots. So basically my point is a 3-point shot here or there really does go a long way, a much longer way than just getting that extra 1 point basically. But Matt talked about a little bit about him in the first segment, but man, Al Durham, this low recruited freshman that no one thought would be playing at all. He thought he'd be out of our really deep bench, really at the very bottom of the bench, fighting for playing time between literally the walk-ons, minus Zach McRoberts, like these players that are not going to play whatsoever. And man, he played 31 minutes as a freshman. Freshmen at a program like this don't play 31 minutes, especially a program that has 5 seniors. And he had in those.
That's a great sign for the future.
Oh, but it gets better. Oh, it gets better. In those 31 minutes, how many turnovers did he have? He had 0. Matt's putting up a little 0 for those of you on the podcast. He had 0 turnovers in 31 minutes. That's better than Rob. Obviously, Rob, and we talked about it briefly about him actually being able to score points and start being a vocal leader and everything. But Rob had turnovers, and he's a senior. We had a freshman, 31 minutes there for over 3/4 of the game, and he had 0 turnovers. And he, with that, he also had 9 points, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds. That's amazing.
He has 0 turnovers in the last hour of basketball. 0. Yeah. 0.
That's amazing. And
that means Tom Crean recruited a guy that didn't turn over the ball immediately.
And also, we some people have talked about this a little, how Al Durham is probably doing better under Archie's system than he probably would have under Crean's system, yes. which is interesting. But I'm loving to see the confidence from him. But and honestly, what? Go ahead.
This is funny because I just remembered Al said something when the coaching change was made, and he was the first one to re-sign. He was he was the first one of the 3 to re-sign, and he goes, Archie Miller's system's going to be perfect for me.
That NC State being a point guard type of thing, yeah.
They both knew it from the start. So, you know, Archie knows guys that fit his system, which is great. Which
is why he's playing already and playing 31 minutes.
And we have Rob Finney coming in next year. So we have a backcourt, guys. Backcourt.
Even if Romeo ends up coming, that's still, and he's still more of a 2 than a 1. That's still an extra backcourt, and the backcourt is getting better. Obviously, it declined just a little bit when Yogi had to leave, but it's getting back there. It's a promising future.
It's hard to replace the statistically greatest point guard in IU history.
Just a little bit, especially in a program like Indiana.
Yeah, just a little bit.
He's really turned over, and he is doing a lot more than I even personally, honestly expected from him too. And he's turning into a really, really key player for this Indiana team. But I want to emphasize one last point about this team. They're really getting better every single game, and they're improving on things each time. This is something that's extremely and vitally important with a new coach, and really as frustrating as games as like Indiana State are, Archie is consistently improving this team game by game, and it starts to make me basically really optimistic, not just for the long run within the next 2, 3, 4 years basically, but really for just the second half of this season. I talked about a week ago or a couple weeks ago how we really can't truly judge this team until mid to late December-ish, and I still stand by that. If they keep improving little by little, they're going to be a decent team, and they're going to be able to make some noise if they basically are getting more consistent. And a big component of that are turnovers. We had 18, 19 turnovers in the first 2 games. They've slowly started to cut down little bit by little bit. Our offense is getting up just a little more. Our defense is able to come off of screens and help just a little quicker. We're able to pressure the ball just a little quicker. And it's getting a lot better. Archie is not red in the face for his redness in the face is coming down in minutes every single game.
He's getting technical fouls now, though.
He's getting technical fouls,
I'm not against the bonehead play by Josh.
That was funny.
I would have gotten a technical too, but I think I would have done something a little differently. But that's why I'm not a head coach. So
if you guys haven't seen that, you have to see Archie. He was frustrated with a play that happened, and he accidentally he had his cards and a towel in his hand, and he threw the towel down, and the towel and the cards accidentally went onto the floor. So that's probably why the technical got there. But it was just really funny. And you also have to watch his post-game press conference. He was like, "That wasn't my intention." And even I also love it's just his character. He doesn't ever laugh, and everyone's laughing in the audience, and he's just kind of standing there with a blank face. And it was funny, and it was obviously, as an Indiana fan, nice to see a coach throwing something, if you will.
Throwing something in anger.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
But that's going to wrap it up for our 12th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and please feel free to add suggestions in the comments section or contact us through our website. A reminder to follow us on Twitter at The Hoosier Sound, like our Facebook page, as well as subscribe to us on YouTube. If you enjoy the show, these are vital for receiving updates about our show, basically. And we're also going to start tweeting more just fun stats or stuff about like that, basically throughout some of the week. So it's nice to get some of those tweets as well, if you would like it. But you can also subscribe on either Apple Podcast, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or Stitcher, and leave us a review. All of those links are in the description below. Visit us at our website, thehoosiersound.wordpress.com, to find out all of our information regarding our podcast, and stay tuned for updates through social media. As always, send us your questions as the audience, and be sure to comment, chat, or send us a message on what questions you'll have, and we'll get them on our next episode. But lastly, if you enjoy the show, leave us a review, because the more reviews we get, the more the podcast grows. Tell a friend, share a link. It really helps so we can keep getting out that content for you. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.